Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Canine's Talking Sense. On this episode, I wanted to take some time and do an episode solely focused on one of the main questions I get often, especially as I travel around. And that question is, how do I get into becoming a detection dog handler? And maybe more specifically, how do I get into becoming an explosive detection dog handler? And I get it from both sides. I get it from the commercial world and I get it from civilians. I also get it from veterans. And what I've recommended in almost all cases, especially with the veterans, is a company called AK9I. So my two guests, one of which I've had on my podcast as we were reminiscing 6 years ago, Tim Baird, and I also have James Overton. James is part of the AK9I staff, and so is Tim. So by having both of them on, I figured we could have a conversation and probably do our best to answer a lot of questions that many of you guys have about how to enter this world. So I'll start off with you, James. Tell us a little bit about you, and then tell us about what AK9 is and what it's becoming.
Right on. Well, I can tell you right out the gate, my background is nowhere near as impressive as you guys. I'm kind of just along for the ride, so to speak, but trying to pick up from everything I can from you guys and sort of follow y'all's lead. But it's a little bit about myself. So I was 8 years in the Army. I was nothing fancy. Military police for the last part of my enlistment. From there, I worked for a company that many people probably heard of called Blackwater. Worked for them for about 7 years on the State Department contracts. And kind of what got me into it was I adopted one of the dogs from overseas and that was retiring from the State Department. And the bug bit me hard wanting to work for Canine. And I ended up working for a buddy of mine, Dan Hughes with Dogs for Defense. He got me into Canine. I got him the contract at Busch Gardens. Asked me if I wanted to be his canine handler. And I said, well, I was like, I know how to hold a leash and that's about it. So he brought me out to Minnesota for a couple months, spun me up, and I've been doing it ever since. And then I got hooked up with AK9I. So I had some GI Bill burning a hole in my pocket. I knew if I went to college, it probably wouldn't have worked out very well for me. So I ended up using that GI Bill. It came through AK9I, and then the original owners suckered me into working for them, and I've been there ever since. I've been with AK9I for about 8 years now. I've been doing Canine for about 12-ish years, give or take. It all runs together once you get over your 40s. So, no, I've been with them ever since. So AK9I, they popped up on the radar. I typed in GI Bill and I typed in canine training, and they popped up, and, I started doing some research on the company. And that's kind of where they've been focused. They originally got their start back in 2001. They were one of the original vendors for the IDD program with the Marine Corps, and that's kind of what put AK9I on the map. And they've gone through quite a few, I would say, transformations over the years. But their big focus is becoming so they're actually a nationally accredited trade school now. So we went through the whole process with the State Council of Higher Education in Virginia, went through a national accreditation process, which if you can imagine, it was an incredibly long process to become nationally accredited as a trade school. But that has become the focus for that side of the company. I run the operational side. I run the teams that we have on some of our operational contracts, and I work on the business development side. Some people think I'm good on camera. I disagree. Maybe it's the bald head and the beard, even though my beard isn't as awesome as Tim's. Maybe one day I'll get there. But no, so the company has been really focused on the training and education piece for quite some time. I was one of the ones that started growing the operational side of things because I saw that there was a need, especially in the schools with canines and things. But that was kind of how I got my start with them. And it's really been trying to get the word out to the veteran community, especially, obviously we're being a nationally accredited trade school. We're open to civilians. We're open to military, law enforcement. But my focus, because of my background, has been the veteran community. I saw what it's done for me. And I saw, a lot of us, guys getting out of the military, looking for that sense of purpose that we had in the military, looking to be the tip of the spear. Not that I was the tip of the spear. I might have been the shaft of the spear. But looking for that next step, looking for something that, had that sense of purpose that you had when you're in the military. And it's helped me, and it really hit home for me seeing the impact that we were having in the veteran community, giving these guys that new sense of purpose and giving these guys that sense of belonging, above and don't get me wrong. There's some great nonprofits out there that are helping the veteran community. But a lot of what us veterans need is we need that sense of purpose, and these nonprofits do great work. But then where's the follow through for the veteran community? Where's the giving them, they take them on these awesome excursions and it's great, right? But then after that week excursion, a 2-week excursion, then what do you do for the veteran? You send them back to their normal life, which is where they're struggling. And this has kind of, filled so many voids for a lot of the veterans. Number one, you're getting a dog out of the cost of the course, that's included in the course. And that dog becomes your companion, right? So it's kind of acting like a service dog in a way. And a lot of us veterans, we don't necessarily need an actual service dog, just a companion that we can kind of count on every day. But it's also giving them that vocational rehabilitation where it's giving them a job that, that gives them that new sense of purpose. We're not working at Lowe's or Home Depot. We're working at, doing something that's giving back to your community. And I think that's what a lot of the veteran community needs.
Yeah, without a doubt. So Tim, who's been on the podcast before, like I mentioned, Tim, fill us in on what's going on for you and how you now play a role at AK9I.
Well, I'm a desk jockey now, kind of getting old in this game, but so my big thing here with this organization is now I'm the vice president, and I'm just trying to formalize a few things. They were doing some really great things. And so that's primarily what I'm doing, trying to get everything formalized a little bit better and make sure everybody's on the same wavelength and talking the same lingo. From my background at Auburn University, that was one of the things that we really stuck with, is made sure that all of our instructors and training staff were speaking the same lingo. And, in the dog world, Cameron, one guy's going to say something a little bit different. They're probably talking about the same thing, but they put their own little spin on it. So that's my primary mission here is being part of that and make sure we're doing that and just enjoying spending time with all these guys. It is really nice to have these guys come in, these vets come in, and other handlers, law enforcement handlers that we have come in, get back in the game and seeing the passion that they have and remembering how it was when the first time you started working that dog and how excited they are to be a part of something as far as the canine community, being a canine team.
Yeah, and you highlighted obviously something when it comes to the training aspect, which is super important, which is that consistency. Because, when someone's new into the field, if those of us, like you just said, can remember what it's like, it can be a lot of information, like drinking water through a fire hose. What does this mean? What does that term mean? This person said it that way. That person said it this way. So yeah, clarity and consistency is super important. So now, James, I'll let you kind of walk us through. Let's just say I'm like you. We hop online. I'm looking for a canine school. I'll start version 1. I'm just a civilian, no military background. Talk me through one, what's the process like? What if I have my own dog? Do you guys even accept somebody coming in with their own dog, or is it by a dog only? So just kind of share with the listeners and the viewers kind of what that process is. Again, first version, no military background, but I want to get into this field.
Right. So, for us, I always recommend everybody to do their research, right? Have a path for what they want to do with this program, especially, not to jump into the veteran community, but a lot of them like, I want to be a canine guy. I want to be, John Wick and, whatever their misperceptions are about the canine community. I don't see that as much with the civilian side. Most of them have a career path in mind, whether they want to get into the detection side or whether they want to get into, dog training or something like that. I see a lot of folks that see us out and about at different venues that we're working, and they're like, hey, I've always wanted to work with dogs. How do I get into doing this? And a lot, especially in the civilian side, the only way they think they can get into it is through the military or law enforcement. And I mean, obviously that's a career path that a lot of folks have chosen. And what we're seeing is a huge shift away from the ones that did it in the military and law enforcement. And then they got out, whether they were a veteran and used their GI Bill or whether they were a civilian and started chasing it down that way. That's how a lot of folks are getting into it now. And it's bringing a lot of, I think, diversity to the canine community. The military and law enforcement canine guys, and I have the utmost respect for them. They're a different breed than your average civilian canine handler, and they have a wealth of experience and knowledge they bring to it. but they can be sort of intimidating to the civilian crowd. And having a little bit of exposure to the canine side in the military, and as a contractor, I worked alongside those guys, so I knew a little bit about it. But I think for the civilians, and we do accept folks that have their own dogs. I think more often than not, they think their dog has what it takes to be a canine handler. And it might be a great dog. It just might not have what Tim is looking for. Tim does a lot of the vetting for us now, and getting the standards up to where they need to be for the dogs we have coming into the program. And we do have some folks that have shown up for the class and have brought their own dog. And, I would say it's the exception rather than the rule for the ones that do bring their own personal dogs. But I always encourage them, like, hey guys, like the dog is included in the course. So if you're paying for the course, you're getting the dog at no extra cost. So bring your own dog. We'll vet the dog, and then we can train the dog from the school and then give you the tools to train your other dog. And we can work with them on the side if you can work it into the schedule of the class. And then they leave the class and they've got 2 dogs, and I think for me, that's been one of the things I've been trying to focus on, is trying to explain to these guys and girls that are coming to the course how to navigate the private sector canine community. It's been Cameron, I'm sure you agree with this, it's been a rapidly changing industry over the last, I'd say probably 8 to 10 years. And, I see a lot of folks now that they come through the course, and then 6 months down the road, they're coming back for a second time because they want to get a second dog, because a lot of these contracts they're going to work on, they're on a 10-hour shift. And, FIFA took probably 50% of the civilian canine teams in the country right now, and they're going and working a shift for 10 hours and the dogs are smoked by the end of the shift. And so I see a lot of these guys coming back for a second dog. And so trying to get these guys to understand the different nuances of the canine community, in the private sector, and how they can sort of apply, whatever their goals are to how we can help them, accomplish that, I think is really, really important. So for the civilian sector, I think it's being able to figure out how they're going to pay for the cost of the course, right? And for us, we do have an interest-free payment plan. But there is a cost associated with this training, right? You're getting a phenomenal dog from working lines. It's the same working lines that we sell to military, government, and law enforcement agencies. So we're not doing puppy rescues. We're not doing pound rescues. And don't get me wrong, for the rescue folks out there, you can get a great dog from a rescue. I've seen some great dogs come from rescues, but that's not the type of dogs that we're putting through the course here. These dogs are all coming from proven working lines. Most of the pointy-ear breeds are coming from Europe. The labs, I think we get a good line on labs. Tim is the lab god. We get a lot of good floppy ear dogs are coming into the program now. But I think it's really, really easy, a lot easier than people think, to get into this. It's just whether or not they have the dedication, to be able to come and jump into it. It's not easy. When people ask me, hey, are you going to make a ton of money doing this? I'm like, yeah, you'll make some great money, but it's all going to be spent on your dog. I think we always got to have the coolest leashes, the coolest collars, the coolest vest. But no, guys can make a really good living doing this, in the civilian sector. I'm not sure of any trade school where you can graduate after 5 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and you're walking into a $60,000 a year job. Some of these guys are hustlers and they're making $100,000 a year, $120,000 a year. I think, one of our graduates, Josh Judge, that dude, man, he was in my class when I originally went through AK9I, and that dude is probably one of the best success stories we've ever had come out of AK9I. That guy is killing it, and his big focus is the board and train stuff, but he's getting into the breeding. I heard somebody call it a Josh Judge lab the other day. I'm like, wow. I'm like, he's got a lab named after him now. That's really cool, right? But I mean, he's a prime example of the success that these guys can have getting into the course and then really applying themselves, and we get a lot of folks, they just want to be a canine handler and hold a leash. That's all I want to do is hold a leash, but Tim and Ron won't let me just hold a leash anymore. But we see a lot of folks that are like that. And, if they just want to be a canine handler, great, right? We got you covered. And if they want to become a business owner and grow more, we can also help you with that. So I think that's super important for people to understand the different career paths that they can go through.
Yeah, there's a number of things you kind of highlighted there that are. Go ahead.
Oh, just a couple of things that James talked about is we do have everybody has the greatest dog, and I've looked at several, and we actually have a handler in the course right now, and I evaluated his dog and said, okay, you're very close, but stop doing obedience. You have too much obedience. The dog's afraid to make a mistake from you. And he went back for the next 2 months and quit doing all that. And he's in class right now and doing really well, right? And then, the second dog thing, we have another student here in course right now. It's his second or third week, and he's getting his second dog. And he's planning on buying a third dog also once he finishes this, with the different systems in here. So he's going to come in when he finishes this course, he's going to start another one right after that and get him another dog. So he sees the potential in the contracts out there that he's working on. And there's so many different avenues to be able to get in here. There's not just the GI Bill, of course. There's the VRE, there's Skill Bridge, there's lots of other stuff that the guys that are veterans can use also. But like he also touched on, we finance. If you want to get who's got the money to drop, it's sitting on their pocket and they really want to get in this field. And how as law enforcement and how hard it is just to get into the unit, got to have that 3 years in there first before you can apply. And so this is an opportunity for people to get in there and get that experience. And I had an organization call me the other day telling me they're going to need 150 handlers next year. 150 more handlers they're going to need. So they said, hey, what can you do to help us? I'm here to help you. We will fix the program specifically for you. Run your guys through here. Tell them about us. Get us in here, and we'll get dogs right back out to you. So that's just a few things I want to touch on that James mentioned there.
Yeah, it's you guys, again, both highlighted some important things that I've even seen from the company that we have, which is the civilian sector, the ones without the law enforcement and without the military background, are becoming very desirable. And just like you said, at first, many think they can't get in because of lacking that experience. But in this day and age, that has shifted significantly, where we have clients who actually prefer people that don't come with the typical military background for any number of different reasons why they may want it that way. But what we've definitely seen is, wow, there's some amazing people who started off with their passion for dogs that have led them to the point here. We have one with our company that her normal, I would call it normal 9-to-5 job, if you want to call it 9-to-5, but she's a Las Vegas DJ. And she's one of our handlers, has been an amazing handler. She's done quite well in the field. But at first guess, you would never think someone's job description prior to becoming a dog handler was a DJ in Las Vegas. So that just kind of, I use that as a great example for a lot of people to go, hey, if you have a passion about this and you want to explore this world, you can be like Tina and find your way in. You just got to knock on the door and you got to go for it. And like you said, there is a financial investment because unfortunately schools aren't free. We can't do that for free. But just like you mentioned, there are a couple ways to accomplish that. There's the interest, the loans, the different things, there are opportunities out there. Some states even have voc rehab available where they will help that. And I thought that'd be a good opportunity. Could you guys kind of share what the VRS and Skill Bridge is, just for those who may not know what that is, so that way they may want to look that route and they may qualify for something like this?
Yeah, so they can reach out to their states, and every state calls it something different. Whether it's the labor, the labor department, or vocational rehabilitation, and some states offer grants even to civilians as well. For the veteran crowd, and I wish I had taken advantage of this. And I don't even think they had Skill Bridge when I got out. Not that I'm trying to date myself here. But for the Skill Bridge folks, for those that are getting out of the military within 6 months of your ETS, you can utilize the Skill Bridge program to come to the course, and the Army will continue to pay you while you're going through training. That way you still have an income, you still have that, that cushion for you. And then when you graduate, you go back to the military, you route process, and then you're ready to hit the ground as a certified team, ready to go out and work. And I think that's a great opportunity for the guys getting out. There's some folks that have already gotten out of the military but still have that GI Bill, and they can use that and come to the course. They get BAH while they're in the course, which helps offset some of their expenses. I think it's like $1,800 a month or something like that, tax free. I can't remember. It's probably gone up since I came through, so it's probably a little over $2,000 a month to BAH.
It is.
They can utilize that, and that'll pay for the expenses. We do have on-site housing that we charge a cleaning fee, a maintenance fee for that, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than going and staying in a hotel for the cost of for the duration of the course. And it's kind of like a college dorm room style setup where folks can stay in the college dorm rooms, stay there and then attend the course while they're going through it, and that kind of helps them as well. But there's a lot of different avenues to do it. We are, looking into being able to accept FAFSA, the financial aid. I can't remember what that's called. Tim, you might be able to talk about that. But as far as I think it's Title 10 or Title 4. Again, I'm a dog guy. I don't do the paperwork side of things. But basically being able to accept financial aid and college loans and things like that, Pell Grants, that sort of stuff. We're not there yet. That's a whole nother level of government bureaucracy that we have to try to chew our way through, like we did with the national accreditation and all that stuff. That is something that we're looking at doing because, again, it is a financial investment, and a lot of folks are hesitant to jump into something like that unless they're really, really passionate about it. I think that's, but again, like there's so many programs out there that you can really look into if you're that dedicated to it. So.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of, let me turn this way. So I'm a veteran. Walk me through as a veteran, because some veterans, and when I've talked to a few, thought, oh, I didn't think I'd be, even though I'm a veteran, I thought I had to have some kind of dog experience in order to go to a school like that. So share with the fact that, number one, any veteran who's got access to their GI Bill can do this, and or like you said, even some of the voc rehab, they have it opened for former, for veterans of military. So
yep.
Walk us through this side of it now. As a veteran, what do we do? How do I just fill out an application with you guys? Do I have to contact the VA? Walk them through the process of a veteran getting access to the school.
I've used the GI Bill to go to college, and it was the biggest pain in the ass I ever had to deal with. I mean, granted, dealing with the VA on a good day is a whole adventure by itself, right? But to use the GI Bill to come through us, it's actually stupid easy. All you do is you get yourself your certificate of eligibility from the VA, and then you send that in with your application, and that's it. We take care of the rest. We contact the VA, and then it starts rather quickly. And we can usually turn that around within, I'd say, a couple weeks. In some cases, so it's incredibly easy to use the GI Bill. Again, you just get that certificate of eligibility. As far as qualifications, here's the challenge that we see. So it's, if you have a pulse and you're 18 and you have a college degree, a high school diploma, then you can attend the course, because we have to have that gate that you have to cross through, because we're a nationally accredited trade school, right? So you have to be 18 and you have to have a high school diploma. So this is what I tell folks. I do a class with all the students that come in at the beginning of each class. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, look, it's up to you what you take away from this class. We will help you train this dog that you're going to be assigned, and he will become your partner for the next 5 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whichever course you're in. And this dog is going to be a phenomenal dog, and it will get you to the certification. But that doesn't mean you're a good handler, right? That doesn't mean you're going to be effective at what you're doing. Your learning is just starting here. The dog's going to get you through the certification, most likely, right? That doesn't mean you're worth a damn. It's what you put into it. And that's what I try to stress to these guys. Navigating the civilian canine, or private sector canine is it's interesting. It's and you got to really set yourself apart to be every month. They're adding more private sector canine guys. That whether they're veterans or civilians, to the job pool out there. And so the jobs are starting to become more and more competitive. You've got to really set yourself apart, so it's just going through a course and getting the certification, isn't going to be enough, in a couple months to get yourself a job. You're going to have to apply yourself and really stand out and really work hard, but again, we have one of the things with the national accreditation is post-graduation employment. We have an 80% post-graduation employment percentage for the guys that come through the course. And I tell these guys, if you're willing to either travel or relocate, or you're in an area where there's a need for canine. Now, if you're in some podunk small town in North Carolina mountains, are you going to be a canine handler in your hometown? Probably not, right? But if you're willing to travel or if you're willing to relocate, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get, pick and choose from the jobs you want to work, especially over the summer. Summer is crazy. I get hit up all the time. Hey, James, do you have any graduates that are living in California? Do you have any graduates in Florida? Do you have any graduates in Georgia? Do you have any graduates? There's very few states that I don't get asked, hey, do you have Canine teams here that can work these gigs or that are willing to travel? A lot of these companies will pay for their travel. They'll reimburse you mileage, or they'll put you in a plane and fly you. Like the guys for the FIFA teams, they were begging for people to come out, begging. And these guys are making $40 an hour. Some of the companies are paying $50 an hour, for these teams to go out, and they're paying for their food, they're paying for their hotel, paying for their travel. So, I mean, it's a great opportunity to get into it. Great opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
Cameron, we just had some students that graduated on Friday, started working on Saturday. They graduated on Friday. They had their first gig on Saturday. So we helped them get videos together, being prepared, and start making those calls. Hey, I'm about to they've already certified. We certify them before they finish, right? They certify, wait 2-3 weeks. Then we do more practical stuff and scenario-based things that they're working on the last part. But when they're already making those phone calls. I've already got my certification. I graduated on this date with my hours, and they have jobs and they're out there. So it's how much you want to put into it and how much work you want to do. I mean, I had a guy call me just a couple of days ago that couldn't find no work in his area. I said, well, I got you work out here in this area. You can get, well, I don't want to leave my town. I can't help you. If you're not willing to travel and do a little something, it's hard. And the one thing that Cameron, and you're in this know it too, is a lot of these civilians and these veterans, they put the time in. They remind me of the nose work people. Not quite as good as the nose work people, but they will put the time in to be good. They have something to prove. And I love my law enforcement guys, but if we could get the law enforcement guys to work as hard as the nose work people do, wow, the dogs would be amazing across the country, right? So, but it's exciting here. I'm enjoying myself. I've got a little bit of fire back in me. I'm working with these young guys again, even got me losing some weight. I'm not Justin Rigney yet, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to be doing some podcasts with Justin with my shirt off. Yeah. I love Justin. I love you, Justin.
There's a lot of truth right there, which is, gosh, I mean, there's so many civilians that are really, really into working their way into this field. And Tim kind of said it, they want to prove themselves, and they put in a lot of extra time, a lot of extra effort to kind of show that they can do this, because they kind of feel that heat that exists from a competitive market space where people come in from the military law enforcement backgrounds. And they feel they're behind the 8 ball. But as we're kind of highlighting, just because you don't come from that background doesn't mean you're behind the 8 ball, but your hard work speaks for itself. And we do see lots of really dedicated, hardworking teams. I kind of wanted to ask the question. So as the people, because this again comes up so often, like we said, we have people that have their own dogs. So Tim, what do you typically see as one of the major things that ends up kind of disqualifying someone's personal dog? And if they were to show up, what would you tell them ahead of time that you're kind of looking for if they were to try to show up with their dog in hopes that this dog could go out there and do the job?
Well, the big thing usually is environmental. They're a great dog at home. Their dog loves to fetch at home. It loves to do all this at home, but you take it away from there and it goes, oh, that's going to eat me. That's going to get me. So they're just not environmentally sound enough usually that I'm seeing. And then you go into toy desire. I've had 2 guys bring pitties in here that wanted them trained. Now, I have trained them and have seen some, and they were very nice, right? But they were kind of raised in that manner, but those dogs didn't really have that. So, we come to that, then we look at just like our regular testing. And so for some of these 2 people too, I can't have that dog that's a 10 That dog that's on the top realm is just, it's too much dog for some people. Again, like I always say, the best handlers are usually athletes, have played some kind of sport in high school. They're very fluid with what they do, because it is absolutely, we all know it's a dance. You've got to be smooth. You've got to be fluid. And I'm a heck of a dancer. I'm just saying. But, you got to be able to do those things and move with the dog. So, and so you may have someone coming here with a little bit of age on them, and they need that dog that's a little bit less. And the people that are coming in here with their pet dogs, like the one, it was a nice dog. He had a lot of toy drive, but had too much obedience. So he quit doing that, and we brought it up. I'm not even opposed to I've seen some very nice food dogs, and we've done a couple of food dogs here, buddy. They were motivated and worked really hard, environmentally sound. They chased the ball a few times, but you give them a biscuit or a little bit of Bill Jack, and they were ready to go. Let's do it. Find some more. And we know ATF has a very successful program, and all they're done is done on food. And there's lots of other programs, USDA and those guys too. You just have to, implement it the way you need to get the dog to work and make them a great team.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. The number one thing that usually washes dogs out is the environmental aspect, handling all the crazy things that many of these environments are going to throw at you, especially as a commercial detection dog handler. I mean, you could be doing a concert event where they have fireworks going off. You could go into a nightclub where the floor is see-through acrylic with lights underneath it and speakers, and it's vibrating, and all these crazy things that go on that the average person may not think of just because it's not their world. And like you said, my dog's crazy to play at home and it annoys me, but then all of a sudden we go to someplace different, and the stress of that new environment kind of overrides that motivation they saw at their house or they typically see in their normal environment. So I can definitely see what you're seeing, which is environmental. So for a lot of the people that are watching and listening and maybe hear something like this, it's not always the problem of motivation. The problem is the environmental soundness that really has to come from some of the crazy operational environments and the really desire to keep working multiple hours. Like you guys said, it's a 10-hour shift and it's mundane. And it's a lot of it for a lot of dogs. It's searching the same thing over and over and over again with not finding anything. Of course, we can do things to help the dog, drop hides, this and that and the other, but still, you're talking hours of time. And just like people, when the handlers first get into this, I know you guys have seen it, they go work their first job site and they've been standing for 8 to 10 hours. Like literally, they're not used to that. These handlers go back to these hotel rooms and pass out, and so do the dogs, because the dogs aren't used to having to stand and walk these long distances across properties, work at one location, standing in the sun for 3 hours, and get rotated to another location where it's maybe a little bit better, but you're still standing, you're still walking, and you still have to be on your game. So it's critically important, like you guys are kind of highlighting, that we have the right people, the right dogs in there. So I've been accepted to AK9I. I show up day one. Is it when I show up along with X amount of handlers, let's say 10 other handlers that are in there, and we're waiting to get our dogs, is it kind of like Christmas morning, you open the kennel door and you tell handlers, run down and go find the dog you want? Or do you guys come into it with, hey, we have some dogs identified for each one of you guys. We're going to have you guys take these dogs out for a walk, get to know, expand upon the process of day one at the school and kind of what happens. And how long is the class?
All right. Okay. So, we have multiple classes. We have 6, 8, 10, and 12-week courses. It just depends on which course you come through. And then first off, we're going to the classroom. We're not even going to look at a dog. We're going to go to the classroom. We're going to start off in there. We're going to start going over the basics, learning search behavior, learning principles of conditioning, all the PowerPoint death. But, we make it fun as possible. But we need to get that part in first, and we're going to do that. And then the second day, we go to the kennel and do a little kennel tour and let you take a little look at what you might get. And we get to go do that. And then we'll go through. And so then we'll finish up our classroom, and then we'll do dog selection. So we'll bring out, we usually have 2 dogs per student for them to look at. And we talk them through how to evaluate the dogs, and we do a little testing. We just do like a regular procurement test with the dogs and let them check them out. And then we let them say, okay, who do you like? What is it? Give me your two best dogs. And then we go from that, and then we let them dwindle them down, and then we put some hands on them, and then we let them put their hands on them. And I tell you what, I've got more respect for a couple of guys that go, hey, I really like him, but that is too much dog for me. So, we say, yeah, it all looks good when an experienced handler's on the other end of it working it and a trainer working the dog. But when you get hold of it and go, I didn't realize how strong they were. And so it's a new awakening for people. So then we go through that process, and then we put them together. And, sometimes it doesn't quite match up. Once they get to put some more time in, we have to say, maybe we need to look at this other dog a little bit, and we bring it back in. Oh, yeah, that's a much better dog for. So the instructors and trainers try to help out, because everybody wants that pretty dog. If I had a kennel full of pretty dogs, man, they're easy to sell. I always remember testing when people would come look at the labs, and this lab, he would be beautiful, and I'd rate him like a 7, and this other dogs are 9s. And every time they said, hey, that dog's really pretty, I knew it was a done deal. That's the dog they're picking. He's pretty, and he was a little bit less than these other dogs. I'm taking that guy. So that's how the process goes. And then they start up, and then we start introducing odor, depending on what courses they're going through, just some basic stuff. 4-hole variable or the odor wall, just to teach them something the dog already kind of understands, and see how they can move and work with the dogs. That's the first week of training with it.
Yeah, it's always hard not to get handlers to make a decision on based on how pretty the dog is. So many, or a certain look that they were really desiring, or a breed they were really desiring. I also kind of wanted to add this to the conversation at the moment as we talked about dogs, is the higher requests these days for the floppy ear dogs. You're seeing a lot of clientele that, at least I know I am, and I'm on the West Coast, so there is a little bit of probably that is a factor to the conversation. But a lot of we were getting a lot of clientele that are requesting, hey, we don't want pointy ear dogs. We prefer not to have a police military look to this event. So anybody who happens to have like a floppy ear, of course, labs, pointers, obviously a smaller uptick in spaniels you'll see from time to time, depending on where you're at. But have you guys also seen the same thing where you guys are needing to kind of locate and procure a different level or different number needed of floppy ear dogs to pointy ear dogs?
Absolutely. I mean, it is all the time. Everybody wanting the floppy ear dogs. I had 2 calls today. I had an organization. Hey, I need 6. Well, what color you want them? Because that's the only way I'm gonna get them out. Because they are hard to find. Everybody wants them, and the AKC, they have the Patriotic Puppy Program, so they're really trying to help the industry by helping people breed, and I'm a mentor for those guys. We got a conference coming up here shortly, and to try to help those people, and they're being very successful with it. They've done a great job with that, but I've been saying it for 15 years. Floppy's the way to go, because it's just you could just keep seeing the writing on the wall, and they want them. Cameron, and you're a spaniel lover like me. If old fat boy ever had to work a dog again in his life, it would absolutely be an English Springer Spaniel. Yep. No doubt. But as big rough guys, we don't want to see that fluffy dog, but holy smokes. And you can't find them either. You go try to get one out of the UK. You're paying $15,000 for it. You can't get them. And they're hard to find, and floppies are hard. I'm on the phone every day trying to find floppy eared dogs every day.
Yeah. It's definitely a challenge. James, I know did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Tim. I have seen an uptick in that. There's the Broadway show. Hamilton has a contract where they have a guy that basically follows around the Hamilton tour all over the country with his dog. And their requirement is it has to be a floppy ear dog. I mean, and granted, most people attending a Broadway show are on the softer side of life, right? I know you're in California, so I won't throw any disparaging comments towards California. But yeah, we see that quite a bit. There's some stuff popping off in Chicago and the school districts out there, and their schools are adamantly against having a pointy-eared dog because the pointy-eared dogs are all bad. I'm a pointy-eared dog guy myself. I have a Shepherd Malinois mix. He's the biggest baby in the world, but he loves to freaking work. And so I'm an advocate for the pointy-ear breeds. We still see there's a few clients out there that actually prefer to have the pointy-ear dogs because of that deterrence factor that you get behind having a pointy-ear dog. SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, they like to have the pointy-ear dogs out there because it gives a certain presence. And we see some of the schools. We're in a couple school districts here in this area. And if they ask us if we can bring the labs in for the elementary schools because they have us bringing the dogs into elementary schools, just with everything going on. I don't know if you're familiar with the 6-year-old that shot the teacher out here in one of the elementary schools, but that was they started putting the dogs in the elementary schools as well for firearms detection and things. So they ask us to bring the labs in because it's a lab, right? Everybody loves the labs. But I think we have seen a big shift towards floppy ears, but I think with the proper education and showing them like, hey, a pointy-eared dog, properly raised, properly trained and socialized is going to be just as good as a floppy-eared dog, but it's that perception that people can't get past, that bias, if you will, of the floppy-ear breeds. So yeah, I would agree, but again, like I'm a pointy-ear guy, even though I do have a 6-month chocolate lab that I'm racing to try to beat Tim on, getting mine trained before his. He'll probably beat me, but I'm trying. But yeah, I am a fan of the pointy-ear breeds. And I will say, for somebody that's, wanting to come to the course and is trying to figure out what dog works for them, they got to look at what their career goals are, where they want to be, and then do some research and find out, like, all right, like if you want to go and work NFL games and NBA games and FIFA and all of that, can you do it with a pointy-ear dog? Absolutely, right? If you want to go to an inner city school in Chicago, or if you want to go and work for Broadway, you should probably get yourself a floppy-eared dog, right? Or if you want to go to the wrong coast, the left coast, then you're going to want to try to get a floppy-eared dog, right? But I think they just do the research and find out what's your career goals, right? Or maybe get one of each, right? There's a lot of folks that are using a lot of different applications for these dogs. There's one application that a lot of folks haven't really talked about. It's kind of an unknown, is the rodent detection and bed bug detection and mold detection. That's a huge growing market right now that these guys can get into, especially bed bug dogs. Man, those guys are killing it. I knew one guy was making $200 an hour drawing his bed bug dog through some of the resorts here in Virginia Beach. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, hold on a second. Like, well, let me go trade my dog in and get a bed bug dog. And it's a lot of folks that want to get into the canine world and just want to get hungry with it. Those are other avenues that they can go, is, stuff that everybody's like, oh, I want a bomb dog and I want to go work for the NFL or FIFA, right? And there's a lot of other avenues that these guys can get into. So, I encourage everybody to do some research and find out, like, all right, number one, where do you want to live? Are you open to traveling? Are you open to relocation? Where do you see yourself, right? If you're Josh Judge, the man's getting into everything. The guy is just, he's doing it all. And he's incredibly successful, right? He's doing board and train. He's killing it on board and train. And then, he's getting into the contract work as well, getting his own contracts, and he's killing it. He's doing a great job. So is everybody Josh Judge? No. I have yet to meet somebody that emulates Josh Judge. But, it's one of those things where, you're going to get what you put into it.
So on that front, what would you guys say, what are important qualities for people to have that plan on attending the courses with you guys? And what are some qualities that maybe they need to check or curb to make sure that they're successful? Because everybody's got unique personalities. We all have different motivators. But what would you guys explain that are some really good things that'll help you be successful as you, one, attend as a student, but then two, just in general, to be successful in this career field?
I think that the biggest thing that I see is the egos, right? Especially the veterans. They either have an ego or they have this sense of entitlement that because they, were in the military, that they deserve to have the best position and the highest pay rate. Well, I served in the military as well, and you know what? Thank you for your service, right? Like, that's awesome that you served, but now what? Like now you have to earn these positions, so I think, leaving the egos at home, staying humble. I try to, part of the thing that I teach at the beginning of each class is how to be successful in the private sector canine world. And number one is just like, you don't know everything, right? You can always learn something no matter where you go. Even if it's something that you don't want to do, you're still learning something, right? I think the biggest part is staying humble, always be open to learning more. But also to learn how to interact with people and not come off as a dick. Like I see a lot of guys that they graduate the class, but they have the personality of a piece of plywood, right? And honestly, like a lot of it has to do with, does the company that you're contracting with like you, right? You may be the best handler that's ever come out of AK9I, but if you're a turd, or if you don't get along with other people, are you going to get a call back for work? No. And that's just the way it is, right? Even so much as like the way you interact with the client or the way you interact with people that are attending the client's event, right? Let's take it, for example, an NFL game, right? And you're standing there like some, big time alpha male, and you got the tattoos and you're bald and the beard and you're just this hardcore killer out of the military, right? And nobody wants to get near you because it looks like you're getting ready to, to take somebody's head off. Are you going to get a call back for work? Mm-hmm. No. Right? Should you probably re-enlist and go back into the military and go to a tier 1 unit? Probably should, or law enforcement, right? Like this is not what we do. The private sector canine world is completely different than the military or law enforcement. So being able to interact with people and make a positive impression, that will go a long way towards being successful. And it's little things like when I first got into it, I got my own trading cards, for my dogs, and just started passing out trading cards to people. And then that was getting back to the client. They're like, man, like, can we have James come back? Can we have James come back up here? And it isn't because I'm a great handler. Tim will tell you I'm a terrible handler, right? But it's because I have a positive impression that I leave with people, right? Like I interact with them, I make jokes with them. I'm giving them a trading cards, and I let them come up and interact with my dog, and is the primary focus for people to come up and pet my dog? Absolutely not, right? But is it going to kill me or my dog, or is it going to stop the mission if somebody comes up and pets my dog? No. Right. So having that positive interaction, now granted, like you don't want it to take away from what you're there to do. You're there to search, you're there to find explosives or narcotics or whatever the case may be. Right. But if you're standing at a post and you're not doing anything, and a little girl comes up with her parents and says, hey, can I say hi to your dog? And your dog's social, which it should be if you're in the private sector, right? Is it going to kill anybody? No, it's not. And does that make a positive impression for the client? And is the client more likely to bring you back, or is that company more likely to bring you back if you're approachable and personable? Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing that I see canine, especially the veteran guys, is being personal. I'm not a fan of people. I like dogs more than people. I'll admit that, right? But I play the game. I think I'm fairly good at it, as far as playing the politics side of things and interacting with folks, because it helps me accomplish my mission, right? And my dog's still working. If you come up and pet my dog, and you've got say it's my drug dog, and you come up to pet my dog and you've got a bag of weed in your pocket, the dog's still going to find it. Right. So I don't think it takes away from, being personable and interacting with the client, interacting with people. I think that's super important to be successful here, leaving the egos behind. We all know the joke, you put 3 canine handlers in a room. What are 2 of them going to agree on? Right. We all know that joke. And it's, I think especially in the private sector, we can be our own worst enemy sometimes. But I warn them about Facebook and the dangers of social media, right? And how they interact with people in these canine forums, because you never know who you're interacting with. The person that you're getting in this trash talking back and forth with could be the owner of the next company you're going to go and work for, and you just screwed yourself out of a job, right? So I always tell them, hey, like your social media presence is just as important as the way you handle your dog. It sucks. It is what it is, right? But I tell folks that, that's take a look at your social media profile. And if your profile picture is you in a wife beater t-shirt with a 40 in your hand, drinking a beer, you should probably re-examine your life goals, right? Like you should probably take a look at that and say, you know what? I need to clean up my social media profile. I don't need to be an anti-law enforcement, anti-government dickhead on social media. I should probably watch what I say. Because I can guarantee all these companies that are hiring, they're going to look at your social media profile. And if you're a turd on social media, chances are you're a turd in real life, and they're not going to even mess with you. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I can relay to the guys, especially the younger generation, is, for God's sake, watch what you post on social media, right? Don't tell somebody that you have a single purpose dog and then all of a sudden there's a picture of your dog on Facebook hitting a bite sleeve, right? Like, or hitting a bite suit. I mean, granted, the most important part of Canine is the cool pictures we take with our dogs, right? But if it's a cool picture and it makes you look like a dumbass because you're telling everybody your dog's a single purpose dog and you're doing dual purpose work, like, people got to be smart with what they're posting on social media. That's the biggest thing I can say. That's my biggest takeaway from it. Tim, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think you covered everything really well, but I seen a post today and I've got my comment sitting in my section to make on it, and pretty much a company bullying someone because of something he had on his equipment he had on his dog.
Oh, yeah. We're going to leave that one alone.
Yeah, they're assuming. People are assuming. No one. What people don't really know. That's a combat veteran, a real deal combat veteran working a dog. He builds stuff for canines, technology that we're going to be using. He's prototyping it. He's trained, but no one bothered to ask this guy. And you have this company bullying this guy because he had something different on. He was something they didn't know what it was, and they was like making all these comments. So, and then back to the thing about being friendly, I suckered my wife in with that. I had a great personality. I was good looking, and she married me too quick. She didn't understand what she was getting into, right? So, hey, I married up Cameron. I mean, I married up, and she didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. No, you guys are hitting some really important things, I think, that get left off, which is number one, you nailed it, social media, because first thing that we do is we scrub the social media because we are looking for, if you say you have a social friendly dog or your dog has limited or no bite work, but then I can just simply go through your social media and see video after video or photo after photo of lots of protection work. Again, not that we have a major problem with protection work, but clients in the image, if something bad happened, something stupid, simple as a dog went up and just scratched with a paw, the insurance is going to get involved, claims, this, that, and the other, and they're going to, yeah, exactly right. You're writing checks. And because if we fail to do our job as the company to vet the people about this dog, and this dog has a documented history of bites on social media, we're going to be paying even more. So just for handlers to be aware of, again, if you're posting stuff that might be contradictory or could be viewed contradictory to what you're saying, that becomes a problem that you have to be able to explain, and or why a company may say, hey, we would love to bring you on, but there's enough risk because of what we see on social media that we either need to give you a different dog, or there's got to be some type of other arrangement made, or the type of work we put you on is going to be limited because of the background the dog has and the perceived risk that we might face because of that. So along with, we all can agree on this one too, one of the most important things is good public relations attitudes. Obviously, and I've struggled with this throughout my career and life because military, law enforcement, special operations world, sometimes I don't slow myself down to think before I say something, or it's just a visceral emotional reaction that I do. And I had to get a lot better about that. It was not a easy process for me. It took me years to get to where I'm finally at now in my 50s, where I can slow things down, not get emotionally triggered by this is something in my mind, someone be doing or saying something stupid that I feel I have to correct. And that comes a lot with authoritative positions where we feel, you got to do something. And at a job site, and I've had a lot of handlers work, they care deeply about following procedures. They want to make sure the event's safe. But sometimes they start getting so worked up about either people's lack of care about the security or the perceived disrespect by the attendee who's like, hey, mall cop, relax a little bit. We're not breaking any laws here. So you just have to be able to know when to turn it on, when to turn it off.
Yes. Balance
out. And then of course, within like what you guys are doing, the training aspect, the ego is super hard, but let go of the ego and just be open-minded and take things with a grain of salt. Take time to understand it, because there's a reason behind why a trainer said something, or there's a reason why the method that's being used in that moment is relevant, even though 2 weeks later we may switch it on you because of this. Just don't take it so personal, because as you take it personal, you carry it on. And it's like there was an analogy. The person says, hey, if I give you a cup of water, hold on to this. After a while, it's holding that cup of water for 10 minutes starts to become very heavy. So if you take things personally, you hold on to it, these things become very heavy, even though at first they seem like not that big a deal. So I just share with people, hey, what's Ted Lasso say? Be a goldfish. Forget about, the goldfish has a 10-second memory. Get past it, move on, and get on to your next thing without getting yourself too worked up over something that may prevent you from doing something you love doing, or takes you out of something that you've been doing that you're good at, but because we didn't forget and we held a grudge or whatever it was, ended up costing you that position. So I know, James, we were talking about, you guys also do detection services specifically at schools. Tell us a little bit about that. What are you guys doing with the school projects? Is it just explosive, gun, narc, all the above? What do you guys typically do for the schools?
So we started this program about 5 years ago. So Hampton City Schools reached out to us. I'll back up a little bit. So I had this running thing in the community where I said, if there's ever a bomb threat at a school, call me, and if I'm available, I'll come and support, because there's a lot of the law enforcement agencies don't necessarily have the resources, or they're waiting hours and hours for, the state police Canine teams to come in, or an agency that does have the resources. So I kind of had an unwritten rule with all the agencies and all the contacts I had, say, hey, if there's ever a bomb threat, call me, I'll come out. Well, they started having a bunch of bomb threats in the area. So I was going out there, and the school district was like, man, like, this is great. Like, James got here so fast. Like, maybe we should get our own internal dog, So the school district actually purchased a dog from us and gave it to the police department for their SRO program. And they said, hey, like, we're going to give this dog to you guys specifically for use in the schools. It was a single purpose lab that we trained. And I trained it up for, narcotics, including marijuana, because marijuana is still illegal in the schools. And they had such a great experience having their own dedicated asset. Not to mention, it's a lab, first of all, so they weren't worried about that. It wasn't a dual purpose dog that they're trying to bring into the schools. And the schools sort of had control over where they could send the dog and where they could put the dog at. And they had such a great experience from that they wanted to purchase a second one. And the department was like, hey, we'll take another dog, but we don't really have the manning to support this. We don't have another slot for a canine handler with the SROs. So then they reached out to us like, hey, we know you do the bomb dogs for Busch Gardens and some other places. Is this something that you guys would be willing to do? And that was sort of what took off with Hampton City Schools to now where we're in 3 different school districts. And we Monday through Friday, we have anywhere from 6 to 8 teams out, sometimes more, spread throughout the different school districts. And it's a variety of teams. It's either explosives and firearms or it's narcotics, all strictly single purpose dogs. And they're in the schools. And the focus, sometimes I tell you, these kids, man, if they paid as much attention to the dog's canine sweep schedule as they do to their studies, then our test scores would just skyrocket, right? So we change up the times when we're coming into the schools because those little bastards, man, they got a more robust intel network than we do with the CIA and DIA and all the other intel agencies out there, right? Like as soon as we pull up, like you're either you're the flushing in the toilets, all hits at once, or you see kids running out the back, right? Or you see it pop up on social media, hey, Canine teams are at this high school or whatever the case may be. But we focus more on like the first arrivals when the kids are first getting there. The dogs are either right in front of the entry control points, or the metal detectors. Well, and the metal detectors have kind of evolved, from back in our day to where it's more than just metal, but they're focusing on shapes and different densities of materials and stuff like that. But they work in conjunction with those other steps that they put in place. And I'd love to be able to sit here and tell you that the canine in a school is the 100% solution to school safety, right? But we know it's not. I wish we could say it was. But it's layers, right? Layers of security, with the access controls and all those things. But we've had a huge impact in school safety in the area. So Newport News Schools, we've been with them for about 3 years. And actually, we started there a few months after the Rich Neck Elementary School incident where the 6-year-old shot his teacher. And that sort of changed the dynamic in that school. And the way it changed it for us was they actually charged the assistant principal with child endangerment because they didn't do anything. They didn't have, the procedures in place. And a lot of the procedures that were in place, she was ignoring. So that made the schools realize, wait a minute, if we're not taking these steps seriously, we can be held liable. So that really sort of opened up a lot for us in the schools, the thing. And for me, it's sort of a passion project of mine. My youngest is still in high school. And so I take school safety very, very seriously. For me, I see a lot of people on the talking heads on like Fox News. Hey, let's arm veterans and put veterans in schools. Well, that's a terrible idea, right? For a number of reasons. One, 90% of veterans can't shoot their way out of a wet paper bag. Let's just be honest. Most of them are probably cooks or probably supply or something like that, right? And not taking anything away from those that served. I served as well, for anybody getting their panties in a bunch, right? But putting them in a canine school and training them and giving them a dog to go back into schools, that's a legitimate answer. That's a legitimate tool, right? And we're seeing a huge impact. There was an 87% reduction in violent incidences in Newport News schools after the introduction of the dogs. Now, I would love to take credit for that entire 7% reduction, but they implemented a lot of other changes. But they had a 47% reduction in narcotics in the schools that they can directly attribute to the presence of the dogs. So the canine program in the schools has had a tremendous effect. And I had a lot of people push back on it, especially the ones that are on the opposite side of the political fence from me. I'm more of a conservative. But a lot of folks push back on having canines in schools, and I never thought we'd be at the point where we'd have to put canine in schools, but that's where we are, right? It's a Band-Aid solution to a bigger problem, right? More parenting and all those things need to happen, right? But we're having a dramatic impact. And I'm seeing administrators they're 20-year administrators who are very anti-security in schools and anti-law enforcement in schools. And then they see the impact that the dogs are having, not just from a security standpoint, but the psychological impact that they're having on the kids. The kids just behave and they're less stressed in the schools because of the presence of the dogs. And, it's huge, the impact that they've been having there. So for me, seeing the success of the canine program in the schools, I think has been really, really awesome to see. And unfortunately, we've been very, very successful with the fines in some of the schools. We found firearms. We find marijuana or remnants of marijuana damn near every day, or the dogs are hitting on a kid that's coming through because mom and dad are home smoking it. And, marijuana is stinky, right? It embeds itself in everything. So the dogs are still hitting on that. But we're seeing a dramatic decrease in the introduction of contraband and firearms in the schools. I had a principal, he was telling me a story. So he had these kids come up to him, and kudos to the principal for having this type of relationship with them. But the kids came up and the kids were talking about, they just had somebody steal all their guns from their car while they were at school. And the principal was like, hey, why do you guys, he's like, oh, no, Mr. So-and-so. He's like, we didn't bring the guns on school property. We parked our vehicle across the street because we knew that the canines were going to be sweeping the school parking lots. So they were parking their vehicle across the street with their guns in it, which I'm sure were probably perfectly legally owned, right? And somebody broke into their car and stole the guns out of the car, right? So we're definitely having an impact, and I think it's really awesome to see. And we're slowly winning over some of the more liberal school districts in the area. I don't know if we'll ever win over the governor, the newest governor of Virginia. She's that's another topic, maybe over beer. But I think, I think we're having a positive impact that they just really can't argue. We, a couple years ago, this was before Tim and Ron came into the picture. I went to testify in front of the Virginia General Assembly. We had the Republican side, they wanted to introduce legislation to authorize funding to put canines in schools in the state of Virginia. And there's a lot of school districts that want us, they just can't afford to have us, right? And obviously, like, I do as much as I can for free, but at the end of the day, this is our career, right? We can't do it for free. It's not a sustainable business model. So we went to testify, and some of the questions that I was asked were just mind blowing. Things like, well, we're worried that the dogs are going to indiscriminately target children of color. Well, first of all, right, like, the dogs are mostly colorblind. They see shades of gray, right? That's not, like, all they care about is the target odor. And I go very, very in depth into saying, hey, these dogs don't discriminate on who's got the odor, right? And I've said this repeatedly. And lo and behold, who do we find stuff on, right? Teachers. I went and searched a classroom with my narcotics dog. It was the first damn day I had the dog in the class. I just certified with Tim with this dog the other day. He's a rock star, Blaze. We went to the classroom, went by all the student desks, nothing, right? As we're walking out, walked past the teacher's desk, and Blaze damn near breaks his neck with his change of behavior, pulling me over to the teacher's desk, and lo and behold, the teacher had narcotics in her desk. So, like, for me, like, is it sad that that's who's teaching our kids? Sure, right? But my dog's crushing it, right? The dogs have been incredibly successful. So for me, that's been a huge program. And also, too, like, that's a job that these veterans can get into and feel proud about what they're doing, right? And it gives them that strong sense of purpose that they're looking for from their post, from when they were in the military. So for me, it's kind of twofold, right? Like, we're reemploying veterans and putting veterans in meaningful employment that is going to have a positive impact on their life, but we're also safeguarding schools. I mean, what better mission is there than safeguarding schools, right? Like, I mean, NFL games are cool. FIFA's awesome, right? But for me, my passion is with safeguarding schools. I think that's super important to do that for the next generation. So that's kind of been my passion project.
Yeah. No, it's one of the most important tools that we can have, especially the way, obviously, safety in schools have changed over the years in the past couple decades specifically. And as you're pointing out, the dogs are just another tool that can be used in making sure the schools are safe. And as you pointed out, it's not always just drug dogs, which I think a lot of parents first think of when they see a dog at a school. They think it's in relation to narcotics, which, like you brought up, kind of brings up some sensitivities. Because we all can agree that a lot of parents don't want to admit that Johnny has a drug problem, that it couldn't be their kid, kind of thing. But when it comes to firearms, dogs being in schools, or explosive dogs being in schools, there's generally a better support for that, clearly. And I know, just by seeing what I've seen living out here on the West Coast, is that you might get a lot of no's when it comes to a narc dog being in a school, but all of a sudden you say it's a firearms dog. And a lot of the agencies that do support schools out here with dogs, it's pretty much always a firearms dog or a explosive dog. And then the other thing you highlighted, which is really critical and important too, is it's a connection piece between the school and, whether it be a canine handler or a law enforcement agency. Dogs are a great bridge to create conversation, to create comfortability in certain aspects. Like, a kid who may be going through some stress gets to see a dog, and that, makes them feel better. They see the dog, they feel relaxed, because life at home is crazy, but seeing that dog, getting to pet that dog or spend time talking to the handler gives them some comfortability, which is an important thing to have in some of these environments. So it's a really good program to see that AK9I is kind of also adding that, or has that piece mixed in with what they do with the education of getting more handlers and teams out there.
Hey, Cameron, let me make one little point that we talk about these dogs and how important they are. Here's the one thing that we cannot quantify. And I've heard, and I've even heard you talk about it, is like vaporweight dogs and body worn dogs actually finding suicide bombers, right, and things like that. Yes, we've not found anyone where we've actually taken a bomb off of them with those dogs that are out here, the mobile dogs and body worn dogs out there. But what we cannot quantify is how many people we deterred with weapons or something else with those dogs being out there. You cannot put a price tag on that. Now, I can sit down and talk to you about a couple of things that has happened that we have had that is not public knowledge with those type of dogs. But the things of what we don't know is the big thing. And I remember back years ago at Amtrak, Will Parker, when he's running that thing, if you went to Amtrak and you didn't find a dog on the platform, I was amazed. Because those guys, if you didn't want to be on their job and working, you didn't want to be a part of that unit. So that's one thing, it's the deterrent that we put out there with the dogs, because you don't know what they are. And when people ask me what they are, it's a detection dog. And very seldom you'll get the one go, well, what kind of detection does it do? But most people are just happy to hear that it's a detection dog. And hey, have a nice day. It's just a detection dog. You're good to go. And building that relationship like we talked about earlier. But that's one of the things I think is most important about what James does and what these other people are doing and across the country, not just us, anyone that's got those dogs out there working. I just want everybody to know I appreciate you, because you don't know what you've deterred, and we probably never will. But I think the dogs are better than any piece of technology that we have out there, and the good people working on that are trying to do meaningful work is just present. And we just want to help people be able to get into this great field that you'll never, ever forget being a part of, is this canine world.
Yep. No, critical point you brought up there, because it is deterrence is the first piece of the puzzle. If I can make someone change their mind that this isn't the target they want to go to, we've already won the hardest part. Now, and it gets shared a lot, but you're right. How do we measure when someone changed their mind? Because the only things that we can measure is when something has happened, good or bad. We did find something, or we didn't, or unfortunately we missed it or there was no dogs at this event and this thing got through. Right. So yeah, I love that you brought up that
any
point.
Client that wants you to find an explosive device at their event. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if it's there, they want you to find it, but I don't think they want you to find stuff there. Right. Yeah. And that's the hope, is that we're presenting this hardened target, right. And that we're deterring things. We've seen the first couple of days we were in the schools, the head of security is like, hey, James, take a walk with me. So we go outside and we're walking along the perimeter of the property of the school. And the stuff we found that people were ditching that they didn't bring into the schools simply because they saw our sign out front. They hadn't even seen the dogs yet. All they saw was a sign that we put out there that says Canine on premises. And of course, I had to throw our logo in there because it's branding, right? But it says, Canine on premises, and it has a logo, and then it has a little silhouette, made it all fancy. But we accomplished it, right? Because they didn't bring it onto the schools. I think that's huge. And I think a lot of these places, that's what they're looking for.
Yep, for sure. So as we wrap this up, is there anything that you guys want to add to the conversation that we didn't cover? And also, how do people find you all if they want to do some, like you said, research and investigating opportunities for themselves?
Well, for me, just you can look us up, American Canine Interdiction. Just check us out on the web. We have, of course, the web page and Facebook too. And call us, give us a call here, and ask to speak to me. I'll answer any questions from you. We'll talk to you. James will also. Cameron, we really appreciate you letting us be a part of this and let the people understand there's a different way to get into the canine field besides just in law enforcement. That there's a way to get in here, and we'd be glad to help people out and show them the glory and the great fun it is to have that partner. You'll spend more time with it than you do your family, and build that bond. And it's very, very critical part of growth for people. That a lot of these guys, when they get these dogs, they're different. They change, and so we're excited to be a part of that, and we appreciate your help with this.
Of course. No, I think it's like I said, it's important to share this information for everybody.
No, I think Tim brings up some good points. And for me, I think the biggest thing is just, number one, hey, it's AK9I.edu. I had to throw the website out there. Ron would have gotten mad at me, right? But I think the biggest thing, that folks looking to get into the canine world, whether you're a civilian or whether you're a veteran, is do your research, right? See if this is what you really want to do, and have a career path in mind. Join the Facebook group. I mean, there's probably, I think I'm a moderator of like a dozen different canine related Facebook groups. People keep making me an admin on there. I don't know why. But join these groups and do your research. And just keep in mind that there's always going to be some that are going to throw shade at other companies, but do your research, do your due diligence. I know if it was Ron and Ron was looking to get into Canine, he'd probably say he's going to go on AI and ask AI about, getting into the Canine field, because he's on this AI kick. I haven't picked it up yet. I probably should. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is just do your research. And if you have questions, always reach out to us, hit us up on Facebook. I'm sure you'll see me in the Canine pages on there, the different forums and stuff, and ask folks like yourself. And like Tim said too, thanks for getting us on here and helping us spread the word. Appreciate all the work that you guys are doing as well. I've been shadow following you for a while now. I'm one of those stalkers. I don't interact on Facebook too much, but I like to watch from a distance. So here we are.
No, it's like I said, when he reached out to me, Ron reached out and we talked this discussion, and it's one, like I've been said from the beginning of the show, is people ask all the time, how do I get into this? And this episode needed to happen so that way we could share options for people. And the fact that you guys also do civilians plus those with military background to get a GI Bill really opens the door up. And I think it's an amazing networking opportunity to have a class that's a mixture of people that have never been a dog handler before and those that have been a military working dog handler. There's just both sides can learn from each other. Every class that I do or seminar I attend where the students are of mixed backgrounds, it's a concept that everybody gets better on, and it creates understanding. Because a lot of times, as we see many times on social media, people see detection from the lens or the world that they're from. They don't understand that sometimes you're going to do it differently in this different detection discipline because of X, Y, and Z. So when you can kind of cross-pollinate and have classes or seminars where they can learn from each other, it's just a win-win for everybody. And it makes the industry, to me, better because we can actually understand sometimes better why this detection group does it this way, or somebody with that was a DJ in Las Vegas can be just as good of a handler as though that's been a handler at an agency for 20 years. So it's I love this opportunity, and I'm really glad that a lot of people got to watch and hear this episode when it comes out. So that way, maybe it gives them a roadmap or a direction to pursue to maybe follow their dream and become a dog handler, or they're closer to our age and you want to do a career change. They retired from the one job they did for 20 years. And you know what? I'm going to become a dog handler. And there's one job that AI cannot replace for sure yet or in the foreseeable future, and that is being a dog handler.
That's right.
We're not going to have a robot walking around with a dog yet. So if your job gets replaced by AI, guess what? We might have an opportunity for you to become a dog handler.
That's a great point. I love that. Yep.
So I thank you guys for taking the time to hop on here. And again, everybody who wants to know like how to find them, will have the links to their website in the show notes, maybe even a link to the Facebook page as well. But thank you guys for taking the time to kind of explain this and what you guys do. And again, thank you to all the listeners and viewers. Please, of course, subscribe or, like the program. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Canine's Talking Sense, where it's okay to be nosy.